I have just one small question. If tomorrow morning you wake up, look around your room, and feel your mind go quiet, weightless, without that, I need to clean this, put that away, how would your life be different? It sounds vague, I know. I used to think so too. Until one morning, I opened my cabinet and froze. It was packed with things, yet I couldn't find what I actually needed. From that moment, I decided to try something I never thought I would. Japanese minimalism. Not the throw everything away and live in an empty apartment kind you might be imagining, but something completely opposite. I didn't expect that just a few weeks later, the way I shopped changed, the way I spent my time changed, and most importantly, the way I looked at life changed too. If you've ever felt like you're living inside a pile of things instead of living in your own space, then stay here, because I'm about to show you exactly what happened when I started letting things go. And yes, you'll want to know. You know, I used to think minimalism was just cleaning the house, throwing away old stuff, keeping a few essentials, and that's it. But when I started learning about Japanese minimalism, I realized, hold on, this isn't like those usual before-after videos at all. It's deeper. It has an entire life philosophy behind it. In Japan, minimalism isn't just the less, the better. It's a way for you to create space, both physical space and mental space. And the Japanese have thought about this so thoroughly that they even have a dedicated word for it. I'm being honest, the first time I read about the concept of ma, I had to pause for a few minutes. Ma doesn't mean an empty, meaningless void, like we often assume. In Japanese aesthetics, ma is the silence between two things. The intentional space created so everything can breathe. Like a piece of music, without pauses, every note would just become noise. That empty space, whether in a home or in the mind, is exactly what brings lightness. Then I read about Wabi-Sabi, and this is when everything started to click. Wabi-Sabi is the acceptance of imperfection, a crack on an old bowl, a stain on aged wood, an object that isn't new but carries years and stories. While modern life keeps pushing us for newer, more, better, more perfect, this philosophy says, it's okay. Things can be beautiful in their imperfection. I read those lines and suddenly thought, this is exactly what I've been missing. Because my problem wasn't that I had too many things. It was that I had so much, yet nothing felt meaningful. Everything seemed kind of necessary, but nothing made me feel connected. And then I discovered another word, Danshari. This word is a play on Japanese terms, meaning Dan, refuse to bring in unnecessary items. Sha, dispose of what no longer has value. Ri, detach from the obsession of owning. In short, Danshari doesn't stop at throwing things away. It's a process of liberation, both physical and mental. And when I combined these three pieces, ma, wabi-sabi, and danshari, I realized the Japanese don't minimize to have a nicer apartment. They minimize to live more clearly. And that's why I chose to try this style, instead of those typical 30-day declutter challenges. I didn't need another challenge. I needed a new mental framework. I didn't try minimalism just to make my home look nicer on Instagram. I tried Japanese minimalism because it promised me something else, the chance to live surrounded only by what truly has value. And from that moment, I was ready to try, not to become extreme, but to carefully choose everything around me again. Now, you can probably understand why I was so drawn to it. And if your mind also feels as cluttered as your wardrobe, maybe, just maybe, you'll find this style oddly fitting too. Now, let's move on to the most interesting part, how the experiment began and what those first decluttering battles looked like. Trust me, a few of them were not easy to swallow at all. I knew very well I couldn't clean the whole house in one go, like those viral videos do. So I started small, like really small. I chose exactly 3 areas that felt the most chaotic to me, and launched my first 3 battles. Battle number 1, the wardrobe, a map of the past. My wardrobe used to be a museum, a messy museum of every phase I had ever gone through. A button-up shirt I bought when I thought, I'll work in an office, even though I work from home now. A thick coat from my 2018 Korea trip. Jeans 2 sizes smaller than I am now. For when I lose weight someday. I looked at it and saw the past, the future, all my hopes and regrets, but not the present at all. So I did something extremely simple. I pulled everything out onto the bed. Every single thing. not leaving anything behind. Then I used a very powerful tool I learned from the Danshari philosophy. The question, have I worn this in the past 6 months? If not, I set it aside. A part of me resisted immediately. But this was expensive. I could still wear it. It's still in good condition. But when I changed the question to, does this item represent who I am right now? Everything changed. After about an hour, I cut down from nearly 70 items to fewer than 30. I could see everything I would actually wear. Each piece had room to breathe, and the next morning, for the first time in a long time, I opened my wardrobe and knew what to wear in 10 seconds. But guess what happened next? I began to realize this was only the beginning of a much bigger shift that even I didn't expect. Battle number 2, the desk. The pile of, I'll deal with it later. Do you know there's a super dangerous species called temporary papers? Those are bills, notes, warranty cards, tiny scraps you just put here for now, we'll tidy later. My desk was their kingdom. Every time I sat down, I felt overwhelmed. Everywhere I looked, I saw unfinished tasks. And I realized it wasn't that I was lazy, it was that the space itself was draining my energy. I started by gathering everything on the desk into one big box, empty. Then I did what I call putting each object on trial. Every item had to answer the question, how do you serve my daily work? If there wasn't a clear answer, out. The result? I kept exactly 4 things: my laptop, 1 notebook, 1 pen, and 1 phone stand. The rest? Tossed or scanned and stored digitally. You won't believe it, but right after cleaning, I sat down and actually felt like working, as if the desk had turned into an ally, not a source of stress anymore. Battle number 3, the bookshelf, memories and expectations. My bookshelf used to be my pride, but let's be honest, how many books have you not read? And how many do you keep just because I'll read it someday? I decided to be honest with myself. I took each book out, held it in my hands, and asked, do I feel excited to read this within the next 3 months? If the answer was probably not, I set it aside. I also did something gentle. I took photos of the covers of books I wasn't ready to let go of and gifted them to others. I kept the wisdom, but not the physical bulk. The bookshelf was then reduced to about 20 books, all things I truly loved or was currently reading. And interestingly, I started reading more after owning less. Altogether, after just these 3 first battles, I had removed nearly 100 items and didn't feel the slightest lack. In fact, it felt like my home had expanded in size. And more importantly, I started to realize minimalism isn't about what you remove. Minimalism is about what you choose to keep in your life, and only those things. I used to think that after a few rounds of decluttering, everything would just stop at the house is neater, cleaner, but no. A few weeks later, there was a moment that made me pause and ask myself, since when have I changed this much? It was right then that I realized the transformation wasn't in the things that left. It was in the quiet things that began to appear inside me. For example, stepping into my living room before, the first feeling was always heaviness. Stuff everywhere, from the overloaded shelf to the coffee table full of random things. My eyes had to process too much at once, and so did my mind. But after I cut things down, reorganized, and created space, I finally understood why the Japanese value emptiness so much. They call it ma, intentional space. The kind of space that isn't crammed, so humans can breathe. Every morning, I open the door to the living room and no longer see a visual to-do list laid out in front of me. Instead, there's silence, a strange sense of calm, and it makes starting the day so much easier on my mind. Another interesting thing, I didn't expect decluttering to affect my wallet. Before, I used to buy things on impulse. If it looked interesting, I'll use it someday, I'd buy it. But after applying minimalism, I created a small filter before every purchase. Do I really need this? Will I use it regularly in the next 6 months? If I lost it, would I even miss it? And when I started questioning things that carefully, I realized most of what I used to buy, I bought just because of emotion. Now I buy less, but I'm much more satisfied with every item I own. Last month, I even saved nearly 25% compared to the months before, not because I tried to tighten my budget, but simply because I stopped buying unnecessary things. The biggest surprise? I had more free time without even trying. Not the kind of wake up at 5 a.m. or using time management apps. It's just that with fewer things, I didn't spend time cleaning over and over, didn't fumble around looking for stuff, didn't waste mental energy deciding where things should go. Everything had its place, and I finally had time to breathe. In the morning, I no longer sit staring at my wardrobe. I pick my outfit in 2 minutes and spend the rest of the morning reading, breathing, or simply drinking my coffee slowly. But the biggest, deepest change, the one that truly made me feel different, was the way I think. Before, I was always driven by the question, what more do I need? More stuff, more experiences, more achievements. But now, the question in my mind has shifted to, is what I have already enough? And most of the time, the answer is, yes, it is. I live slower, choose more intentionally, and feel lighter with what I already have. I no longer feel lacking. I feel clear. In just a few weeks of trying Japanese minimalism, I realized I'm living with less to live more. If you ask me, from everything you've done, what's the deepest thing you've learned? Honestly, there was one very small moment that completely changed the way I look at minimalism and at myself. It wasn't some big event, just a fleeting feeling, but it made me realize, I've actually changed. And from that moment on, I began to see more clearly the lessons that had sunk in. Not absorbed through theory, but through every single time I picked something up and put it down. I realized that empty space is also a part of life. Before, whenever I saw empty space, I had the instinct to fill it. A blank wall needed art, an empty table needed decor, an open corner needed a plant or a lamp. But after living in a more minimal space, I began to appreciate that emptiness. It isn't a lack, it's a rest. Just like in music, you can't have non-stop notes. The pauses are where the listener feels the echo. And in life, empty space works the same. It's where the mind gets to breathe. I also learned to choose intentionally instead of keeping things out of guilt. So many items I used to hold on to just because it still works. I used to like it, or maybe I'll need it someday. But the longer I kept them, the clearer it became. I never actually went back to them. I started asking one simple question. Does this still have meaning for me today? If the answer was not sure, then it was almost certainly not anymore. And I realized keeping an item out of guilt, out of the fear of wasting money, or out of attachment to the past, is like holding on to a relationship that no longer fits just because it used to be good. Another thing minimalism helped me see is the power of thinking long-term before letting something enter my life. I used to buy things very inspired. If it looked nice, cheap, or someone reviewed it well, I bought it. Now, every time I'm about to buy something, I pause and ask myself, does this support the life I'm trying to build? Will I use it regularly in the next 6 months? A year from now? Will I still find this necessary? Just pausing for a few seconds saved me from so many liked only at the moment of purchase items. And honestly, I feel richer. Not because I have more money, but because I have fewer impulses. And perhaps the deepest thing I learned is the difference between owning less and living fuller. Before, I used to associate more stuff with being complete. But now, I see. The fewer unnecessary things I have, the more clearly I can recognize what truly matters. A room with 3 right items feels better than a room with 30 average ones. A day with 2 important tasks feels more fulfilling than a day running through 10 trivial ones. And a life with less noise gives your inner voice more room to be heard. So, if I had to summarize what Japanese minimalism taught me, it would be this. Sometimes, to live fully, we need to have less. Not less because we lack. Less so we can see more clearly what is truly worth keeping. To be honest, the minimalism journey is not always easy. In fact, there were moments when I almost gave up halfway because I wasn't just decluttering objects, I was clearing out so many old emotions attached to each item. And that part is not simple at all. One day, I stood in front of an old gray chair in the corner of my room. It no longer fit the space, it was worn out, a bit wobbly, and I didn't even sit in it anymore. But when I tried to move it out, I froze. My mind instantly flashed. I used to sit here studying Japanese. This is the chair Mom bought me when I first moved out. It was part of a really important phase of my life. Logically, I knew the chair had finished its job, but emotions don't get convinced that easily. In the end, I did something that sounds a little funny. I sat on the chair one last time. I let myself remember that old period for a bit. Then I took a photo. And after that, I posted the chair in a local giving away group. It's no longer in my home, but I kept the memory in a lighter way. And I realized sometimes you don't need to keep the object to keep the memory. Another challenge came from the people around me. When you start living differently, even just a little, there will always be someone who has questions. A friend came over, looked around, and asked, "Wait, why did you clear everything out? It looks kind of empty." Someone else joked, "Your place looks like an Airbnb." And I laughed, but inside I felt a little unsettled. Am I overdoing it? Am I living too extreme? But then I realized not everyone will understand, and they don't need to, because I don't live to display. I live to feel lighter, clearer, and I just need my own space to reflect that. That's enough. Another moment came when I started feeling tired. Not physically tired, but mentally. You know the feeling of, I'm doing the right thing, but I don't see a clear change? I felt that in the third week. The house was tidier, yes, but there was no wow moment. I began wondering, is this worth it? Instead of stopping, I decided to switch to a gentler mode. I no longer forced myself to clean a whole area each day. I set a tiny challenge. Each day, just pick one item, just one, that I could let go of or find a real use for. Some days it was a chipped ceramic cup, some days an old folder. Small things, but consistent. And that slower rhythm kept me from collapsing midway. I learned that minimalism isn't something you finish in 30 days. It's a constantly adjusting journey. It can be slow, it can be uneven. But if you're still continuing, you're still moving forward. So, if you're also feeling a dip along the journey, I just want to say one thing. It's okay. No one requires you to be perfectly minimal. You only need to be a little better than the you of yesterday. And sometimes, a chair just needs to be sat on one last time in order to be let go. When I started this journey, I simply thought, let's just try. Try living with fewer things, being a bit tidier, maybe focusing a little better. But now, if someone asks me, did it actually change your life? My answer is yes, and not in a vague way. I'm not saying my life turned into a movie, or that I became some perfect version of myself, but I'm certain of one thing. I live differently. The space around me changed, but deeper than that, the way I see the world, the way I choose things in my life, has shifted completely. Before, every day felt like an endless chase. One task after another, piles of stuff on top of more stuff. A schedule packed so tightly it felt like if I didn't do enough, didn't have enough, I'd fall behind. But when I started peeling back every layer, every item, every unnecessary commitment, I began to see more clearly what was truly essential. I live slower now, but not in a lazy or unproductive way. I live slower because I have the right to choose my own pace. In the morning, I'm no longer rushing to pick an outfit. I know exactly what I'll wear. At night, I don't have to clean up a battlefield anymore. Everything has a place. Everything serves the lifestyle I want, instead of pulling me in some direction I never chose. I also started questioning everything I bring into my life. Not just new items, but invitations, hangouts, decisions. I ask myself, does this align with the direction I'm heading? And that simple question has saved me from so many things I used to feel obligated to follow through with. You know, the interesting thing is, when I began living with less, I realized I had more time, more quiet, more focus, and strangely, more small joys. Just a quiet afternoon, a warm cup of tea, and a book I genuinely want to read. Nothing else needed. I used to live with the mindset, I need more to live better. But now I think, I need less to live deeper. And that, to me, is the biggest change. A change that doesn't need fanfare, doesn't need anyone's approval, but grows quietly and steadily. Day by day, choice by choice, breath by breath. If you're thinking, that sounds great, but where do I even start? Then I understand that feeling. Honestly, I used to sit in front of a room full of stuff too, not knowing where to begin, telling myself, I'll do it tomorrow. So I'm not going to give you a 30-day plan or a list of 100 things to throw away. Instead, I'll share the way I actually started. Small, slow, and without pressure. The first thing I did was choose exactly 3 areas in my home that made me tired just by looking at them. For me, that was my wardrobe, my desk, and my bookshelf. For you, it might be different. Maybe it's the shoe cabinet, the kitchen corner, or simply the nightstand drawer. Once I chose them, I set one rule. Don't try to finish everything in one day. Just start with one area, one session. And when you step into a space, Ask only one question. Does this item still serve the life I'm trying to live? Not, is it still usable, or is it valuable, but is it still right for who I am today? If the answer is no, or you hesitate, then it should go. You can donate it, resell it, or put it in a test box. I call it the 30-day box. You put items you're unsure about into it, close the lid. After 30 days, if you haven't touched them, you have your answer. I also suggest leaving at least 20% empty space in each area. Empty space may sound useless, but it's actually the breathing room of a room, and for you too. Another small tip I used: don't declutter in silence. Put on a gentle playlist, a podcast you like, or even invite a friend to join. When you do it with someone, or with sound in the background, the journey feels a lot less heavy. And if you have an item that makes you conflicted, you can't let it go, but you don't use it either. Don't rush to decide. Take a photo of it. Write a short line about why you once loved it. Then try removing it from your living space for a few days. Whether you feel its absence or feel lighter will give you a clearer answer than any tip. The last thing, and also the most important, don't try to minimalize the right way. There is no standard. This is a personal journey. You can keep the things you love, even if someone else calls them useless. You can go fast or slow. It's up to you. Every time you let go of something unnecessary, you're already doing well. Just remember this. You don't need to declutter everything at once. You just need to start. One item, one corner, one question. And then you'll see that the real change isn't in what you let go of, but in how you begin to look at everything in your life. So, from someone who lived surrounded by clutter and woke up every morning feeling tired, I decided to try stepping into a new journey. Simpler, clearer, thanks to a few small concepts from Japanese minimalism. I started with a few small battles, cleaning my wardrobe, clearing my desk, rearranging my bookshelf, and from there, I realized I wasn't just cleaning my home. I was cleaning the way I lived. Every item I kept was an intentional choice. Every empty space was a chance to breathe, and each day spent in that space was a day I felt a little lighter. Not because I got rid of a lot, but because I kept exactly what I needed. If you're feeling like life is a bit chaotic, or you simply want to see yourself more clearly among everything, then I genuinely think you should try. You don't need to start big. You don't need to declare a life transformation. Just start with one item and one question. Is this still right for me today? If the answer is no, then maybe you don't need it anymore. And if you do begin this journey, I truly hope you'll share your experience with me. Tell me where you started and what surprised you the most. Leave a comment below. I'll read them all. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next one. Because I'll be sharing more about how Japanese minimalism has changed me, not just at home, but in my mindset, my work, and my relationships. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. And remember, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to start.